My name is Francisco. I'm a shadow work practitioner at discoveryourshadow.com. Shadow work is looking at the parts of us that we have disowned or that we have repressed in ourselves, because at some point in our past, we've decided that it's not safe to have those parts of us out. Perhaps it's the parts of us that have been angry in front of our caregivers and they've not been welcomed, but have been shut down. But in a need to maintain our wants for safety, for food, for shelter, etc. as children, we've been given the message that it's not safe to have those parts out. So that, as an example, is something that you'd work on within shadow work. The parts of you that are repressed, either from your caregivers, from teachers in your childhood, perhaps from society, perhaps even religious bodies that you've been part of. In the distant past, when I've worked with adults who experienced trauma in their childhood, I noticed that they're very cyclical in terms of how they were experiencing that they were actually experiencing it in the body of an adult, but through the memory of a child. It may be that you suddenly have an outburst of anger that comes in particular situations, and you find yourself thinking, where did that come from? Well, that's the sort of thing that you can bring to a session of shadow work and explore in an environment that has no real-world consequences. So the manner in which we could start looking at how you would deal with some of these parts of you that have been repressed for a long time is to have a conversation about what it is that you'd like to have happen in your life. In doing that, you can start exploring in the conversation with myself as a practitioner and see how those parts or situations materialize in your life. Is it with particular people? Is it in a certain environment, be it work, be it relationships and so forth? And in exploring that, you start opening up yourself and start diving and dipping into your psyche. When I asked myself what drew me to shadow work, the reality is it's the other way around. It's shadow work drew me to it, in that it's the one thing in all the work that I've been doing with adults that have experienced trauma in their childhood, that it seemed to create change in their life, change in that they were no longer a victim of their circumstances in their past. And they were able to use that as a foundation to springboard into something new parts of themselves that they could actually explore safely because that trauma was no longer happening. An example of shadow work that I did recently was I identified some of the messages that I'd taken on inside me from my childhood around school, teachers, children, the church where I used to go to, the priests there, all saying that my sexuality wasn't welcome and it was something to be shamed about. And I'd managed to internalize that. So not only was I showing myself as one part, the other part of me was the part that was being shamed. And they're just opposite sides of a dynamic. And so I did a piece of work to dissolve that dynamic completely. And in doing so, it allowed me to actually honor myself in my completeness. And now it's just I'm able to express myself freely, as I think I'm doing here. I noticed that people that come to do shadow work are people that have reached a threshold in their life where carrying on being who they've always been doesn't seem to be working. And it's starting to result in experiencing some really uncomfortable feelings inside them. Uncomfortable feelings of anxiety, perhaps they're having panic attacks, perhaps they're getting really emotional, depression, perhaps they're stuck in a past memory that they just, almost like a regret, or they're feeling that they've not done what they wanted to do with their life and that part of them has been holding back. So I noticed that they're in this threshold and they just can't carry on being who they've always been, and they're trying to find who they can be. The types of transformation that I have experienced from clients doing this work is one where they reclaim their agency. So rather than being coerced, they put boundaries in place that say, this is the line that you do not cross, and crossing it are consequences. To see that is the reason why I keep coming back to doing the sessions that I do, in seeing people building their agency, people building the boundaries in their lives, and people building themselves up. It can be very challenging for a person to connect with an emotion that they haven't felt for a very long time during a session. And in doing so, there's a level of discomfort that can come with that. Slowing everything down is really key for that, so that the person can reconnect. And also, as with everything we do in a session, a client can always pause or stop where they are and disconnect with that particular emotion and then reconnect when they're ready, or not at all, perhaps wait another session to do with it. But this level of discomfort is something that in time, the client potentially becomes comfortable with. I keep hearing, that line, feel the fear and do it anyway. If I can enter a different relationship with fear, then I've got the opportunity to start bringing online a level of courage to be with the unknown. The personal barriers that people find in doing this work it's called shadow work. And there's the word work in it. And so it's not something that becomes a hobby as such, because when you start engaging with parts of you that have been repressed from the past, it can bring those challenging feelings and emotions up. And to sit with those challenging feelings and emotions, and not to try and distract yourself with phones, with alcohol or medication and so forth, is work in itself. So people's stories about themselves tend to change in the way in which they're no longer a victim of their past. They're no longer a victim of the situations in which they experienced as a child. Somebody would come to do shadow work because they've just reached that threshold in their life where things aren't continuing the way they want them to be. Their partner's moved out of the house, children have been taken with them, they've got a high level of anxiety because they don't know what's going on. And no amount of medication is helping them, no amount of counselling is helping them, and they've just, to some extent, run out of options. And so coming for a 5-hour session allows them to start unpacking what's going on, but also to be able to go and sit with the part that's really challenging in that moment and just seeing what that part's got to say. So the shadow work sessions are 5 hours to allow the space for the client to explore all parts of themselves associated with what they're bringing. So not having a boundary of short time means that there's more time to explore. And to be able to explore means that the psyche is opening up and more parts are being able to come forward to touch more parts of the past than if you were to deal just in a short space of time. It also means that the connection with the facilitator can be built so they feel safe enough to start bringing out perhaps those parts of them are more shamed, more anxious, or just feel that they can be felt and understood. So shadow work is different to other forms of therapy in that it is an embodied experience of the different parts. Other forms of therapy, be it person-centered counselling, be it internal family systems, it's a one-to-one session, it's speaking to your counsellor or your practitioner. Also at the beginning of the session, you say what you want to have happen by the end of the session. So what's the change that you're looking for? Or what is it that you want to explore? Or what is it that you want to be different? So the formal training that I've undertaken and qualification is through Healing the Shadow, which is provided by Marianne Hill and Rod Boothroyd. And it was a 2-year practitioner training. Some of the beliefs that we have in Healing the Shadow is that all parts are welcome. So however a person presents themselves in a session, each of those parts that are expressing themselves or feel that they can't express themselves, we believe that they are welcome. And so we welcome them completely and utterly. So the sessions are held in my home, in a room that is purposely built for it, beautifully decorated, where clients feel relaxed, comfortable to open up and express what's going on for them. It's really important for me to be comfortable in my home and that people that come here feel comfortable as well. So there's no tension in them, there's no stress, and they feel held whilst they're here, and that any baggage that they're carrying, like physically or emotionally, they can just put down and know that it's in a safe place for it to be. The themes in the house are to do with where we've travelled. So some of it's India. That painting over there is mother and baby. It's about nurturing. It's about grounding. It's about solidity as well. I think people find they start telling themselves stories about what they're seeing. So music's always been a huge part of my life. And I compose, I play. So there's a little baby grand downstairs as well. If you'd like to find out some more about shadow work, then please contact me at discoveryourshadow.com.